The three of you are representative of the Arab world. We can see now that nothing short of full change will be enough. Thanks to our guests, Mohammed Fahad Al-Khatmi in Riyadh, Sharif Al-Musa in Doha and Adil Shamu in Maryland. And thank you for once again joining us for Inside Story. If you want to comment on this show or send us an idea for a future edition, it's easily done. Hop on the email and drop us a line, insidestory@aljazeera.net. I'm Kamal Santamaria from the whole team. Goodbye for now.
On the next Riz Khan show, women in the revolution. They've been out on the streets making their voices heard, but what role will they get to play in their country's political future? Riz Khan at this time on Al Jazeera.
It is in the details. A look. A connection. The moments that reveal the truth. Award-winning documentaries from critically acclaimed filmmakers. Witness documentaries to open your eyes. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Afghanistan is faced with a huge challenge.
Relations have gone really sour between us and our allies.
We have inflicted considerable damage on the enemy.
The people who make international headlines.
Ultimately, the truth will out.
They want to stop this publication of information that embarrasses them.
Make time for Sir David Frost. Frost over the world. At this time on Al Jazeera.
A popular uprising that shook the country to its core. A defiant president under siege from his people. As the protesters took charge of the streets, we look back at the events that are changing Egypt.
I will stay on the air if I can until the police come.
In a special program, Al Jazeera gives you a day-by-day account from those that witnessed them firsthand. Egypt burning, at this time on Al Jazeera.
People talk about televising the revolution. It's tweeting the revolution, Facebooking the revolution, videotaping the revolution.
A new world driven by new media.
This is a very peculiar moment in media history.
Nobody can force me in 2011 to watch whatever I don't want to watch.
Analyzing the media's role in shaping modern history. The Listening Post, at this time on Al Jazeera.
The United Nations condemns Muammar Gaddafi's regime and suspends Libya from the Human Rights Council. Hello, I'm Fuli Batibo. You're watching Al Jazeera live from Doha. Also on the program, reports that pro-Gaddafi forces have regained territory, but rebel forces hold AlZawiya and say they're preparing to liberate Tripoli. Pakistan's Minister for Minorities is shot dead in Islamabad. And an influential cleric joins the protests in Yemen and calls for the establishment of an Islamic state. Well, we start with Libya. The United Nations has issued its strongest condemnation of Muammar Gaddafi's regime and suspended Libya from its Human Rights Council. Meanwhile, international military leaders are playing down the prospect of a no-fly zone over the country. Gaddafi's son, Saif al-Islam, has warned the West against military action. Now, we are getting reports that pro-Gaddafi forces have stormed another town held by the opposition. We're also being told that heavy fighting is still ongoing in Brega, south of Benghazi. Now, this just comes hours after the Associated Press said pro-government troops had retaken two other regions, the mountain town of Garian and the city of Sabrata. Anti-government forces say they did manage to repel attacks on three other areas, Misrata, AlZawiya and Zintan to the south of the capital, Tripoli. Well, let's speak to Al Jazeera's Jackie Rowland, who is in the city of Benghazi in the east of Libya. Jackie, a lot of reports about pro-Gaddafi forces regaining territory. What are you hearing about this?
Well, fully, about 45 minutes ago, a very agitated fighter bearing an AK-47 came running into the square here, shouting at everyone that Gaddafi forces had attacked Bereka, which is about 200 kilometers along the coast from us here in Benghazi. He was very agitated. He said to the men standing around, "What are you doing standing around here? Gaddafi forces are attacking Bereka," and it was feared that they would also attack AlJazeera, which is about 60 kilometers up the road from Bereka. So clearly action in that area, clearly clashes between pro and anti-Gaddafi forces. But at the moment here in Benghazi, despite, as I said, that very agitated outburst, apart from that, people here in the center of Benghazi still seem fairly calm. And there is this sense at the moment that the fighting, although maybe only 200 kilometers away, is still at a sufficient distance from this city for people not to be running here or becoming too agitated yet.
So, as we saw, I mean, you say Benghazi firmly in the control of anti-Gaddafi forces. We saw celebrations there in the last few days. But what are they doing, Jackie, to prepare for the future and also to prepare perhaps to take their fight to Tripoli, if that's in the cards?
Well, I was talking to a senior rebel commander a couple of days ago, and he made it quite clear that there are two essential strands to the opposition strategy. And the first strand is to defend Benghazi. And these reports that we're hearing now of fighting, of counterattacks by Gaddafi forces as close as 200 kilometers away would appear to vindicate that decision by the opposition that they need to defend Benghazi before thinking about advancing to try to join up with other opposition forces further to the west. Now, when I was talking to this commander a couple of days ago, he said that yes, step two was very much the desire and the ambition to take forces recruited in Benghazi to join the fight and push further to the west. But he did underline that defending Benghazi, which is really the center now, the place where the whole uprising started and very much the base and political and military center for those rebel forces, that it needs to be defended and consolidated as a first priority.
Jackie, we're now hearing reports that Brega, that you were just talking about just a moment ago there, has been retaken by pro-Gaddafi forces. What's the significance of this?
Well, Bereka was essentially the furthest point along the coast to the west that the anti-government forces have advanced. As I said, 200 kilometers from here. And that was basically as far as you could safely go without straying into pro-Gaddafi territory. Now, if indeed these reports are borne out, and as I said, it was only 45 minutes ago that we first heard reports from a fighter here on the ground in Benghazi that pro-Gaddafi forces had in fact attacked Bereka, then that could indicate that there is a serious thrust, a serious forward thrust by anti-Gaddafi forces to try, by pro-Gaddafi forces to try to retake territory which the rebels had captured. Of course, the key thing here is going to be, will ground assaults be accompanied by airstrikes? And there have been reports in recent days of attempted airstrikes by pro-Gaddafi forces against a weapons store